Solitude is often misunderstood. Many people associate it with loneliness, with being left out, or with the absence of belonging. But solitude, when embraced, is not emptiness. It is space. It is clarity. It is freedom. It is the ground upon which strength is built, the mirror through which identity is discovered, and the sanctuary where resilience is born. Walking alone does not mean being weak. It means having the courage to face the world without the shield of constant companionship. It means being strong enough to hear your own voice without drowning it out with the noise of others. It means learning that peace is not found in crowds but cultivated within. Solitude is where true self-awareness begins. When surrounded by people all the time, it is easy to lose yourself in their voices, their opinions, and their expectations. You adapt to fit in, you adjust to be accepted, you compromise to feel validated. But in the stillness of being alone, there is no one to impress, no one to perform for, no one to measure up against. In that quiet, you meet yourself as you are. You learn what excites you, what scares you, what drives you, and what truly matters to you. This self-awareness becomes the foundation of strength, because you can no longer be easily swayed by the noise of the world. You know who you are, and knowing who you are is the most unshakable power you can hold. Solitude builds resilience. When you learn to walk alone, you no longer depend on the presence of others to validate your existence or to carry your burdens. You face challenges with the knowledge that even if no one stands beside you, you will stand. Even if no one claps for you, you will keep moving forward. Even if no one notices your effort, you will not stop. That kind of independence makes you unbreakable, because you are no longer fueled by external approval, but by internal resolve. It is in solitude that you learn how strong you truly are. It is in solitude that you discover that your survival does not depend on anyone else, and once you know that, no betrayal, no rejection, no abandonment can destroy you. Solitude is not a punishment, it is preparation. It prepares you for the storms of life by teaching you to anchor yourself in your own strength. It prepares you for success by giving you the discipline to focus when distractions are stripped away. It prepares you for leadership by teaching you to trust your own judgment when no one else can guide you. Many of the greatest breakthroughs, inventions, creations, and transformations in history were born in solitude. Greatness often requires silence, clarity often requires distance, growth often requires stepping away from the crowd long enough to hear your own heartbeat and recognize its rhythm. Solitude teaches you to value your own company. Most people run from silence because silence forces them to face themselves. They drown their days with constant noise, endless socializing, and ceaseless distraction, not because they enjoy it, but because they fear what they might hear if it all went quiet. But when you face that silence and embrace it, you no longer fear it. You no longer feel the need to constantly be surrounded. You learn that your own presence is enough. You learn to be your own companion, your own motivator, your own confidant. And when you are enough for yourself, no one can make you feel small for walking alone. The strength built in solitude shows up everywhere in life. In relationships, it means you do not cling desperately out of fear of being alone. You choose people out of love, not out of need. You know you can stand on your own, so anyone you welcome into your life is an addition, not a necessity. That makes your love purer, your friendships healthier, and your connections deeper. In work, it means you can focus without constant validation. You are not seeking recognition at every turn. You are committed to growth because your motivation comes from within. In challenges, it means you do not break when others walk away. You have already walked alone, so their absence does not paralyze you. You simply continue forward, carrying yourself with the strength solitude has taught you. Solitude also sharpens your vision. Crowds can blur your perspective, filling your mind with countless voices telling you who to be, what to want, and how to live, but in solitude, the noise fades. You begin to see your path more clearly. You understand what aligns with your values, what serves your dreams, and what deserves your effort. Solitude is like a lens that brings your vision into focus. Without it, life is a blur of distractions. With it, life becomes intentional. Strength is not just about enduring difficulty. It is also about clarity of purpose. Solitude provides both. Strength built in solitude is also deeply rooted in self-respect. When you walk alone, you are no longer willing to lower your standards just to avoid loneliness. You do not settle for shallow connections, toxic friendships, or half-hearted relationships, because you already know how to be whole without them. Solitude raises your standards, because once you learn to enjoy your own company, you will never again tolerate company that drains you. You no longer accept less than you deserve, because you have discovered that solitude is not worse than being mistreated. It is far better. There is also a quiet power in being misunderstood and walking through it alone. Many will assume that solitude is loneliness, and they may even pity you or judge you for it. But their misunderstanding only adds to your strength, because it teaches you not to live for their approval. It teaches you that people may never understand your journey, and that is perfectly fine, because your journey is not theirs to understand. This independence from opinion makes you unstoppable. When you no longer need anyone to validate your choices, you are free to pursue your path without fear. Solitude also builds creativity. In silence, the mind begins to wander, to imagine, to create. In solitude, ideas are born, visions are nurtured, and dreams take form. Without the constant influence of other people's voices, your originality shines through. The greatest artists, thinkers, and leaders in history often retreated into solitude to create their masterpieces. The strength they carried into the world was forged in the quiet moments no one saw. Solitude is not just the birthplace of strength, it is the birthplace of creation. The woman who embraces solitude is not waiting to be rescued from it. She is not desperate to escape it. She has turned it into her advantage, her training ground, her sanctuary. And because of that, she carries a strength that is rare. She walks with a confidence that does not need an audience. She speaks with a voice that does not need validation. She loves with a heart that is not afraid of being alone. Her solitude has taught her that she is enough, and when you know you are enough, the world cannot diminish you. Solitude is also where healing happens. When constantly surrounded by others, pain can be buried beneath distraction. But in solitude, there is space to face wounds, to process emotions, to rebuild from within. Healing requires silence, patience, and reflection, all gifts of solitude, and a person who has healed in solitude carries a strength that no external storm can shake. They are not defined by scars but empowered by them. Their solitude has not made them bitter, it has made them whole. Strength built in solitude is not loud, but it is undeniable. It does not boast, but it radiates. It does not demand attention, but it commands respect. You can see it in the way someone carries themselves, in the way they make decisions without hesitation, in the way they refuse to settle for less than they deserve. This strength is not about arrogance, it is about certainty. It is about knowing who you are, what you bring, and what you will never again allow. And once you have found that certainty in solitude, it can never be taken away from you. Solitude teaches you patience. It shows you that growth takes time, that healing is not rushed, that strength is not built overnight. In the quiet, you learn to wait without fear, to trust the process, to find peace in the unfolding of your journey. This patience becomes a pillar of your strength. It keeps you steady when others panic, calm when others crumble, and focused when others give up. Solitude builds endurance, and endurance is the essence of strength. Walking alone is not about rejecting others, it is about embracing yourself. It is about realizing that you can be your own source of strength, your own source of joy, your own source of love. It is about standing firm in the knowledge that even if the world turns away, you will not collapse. You will continue because solitude has taught you that you can, and once you know you can stand alone, you become fearless in the face of anything. That is why solitude builds strength. It does not weaken, it fortifies. It does not isolate, it liberates. It does not take away. It gives more than you ever imagined. Solitude is not the absence of something, it is the presence of yourself. And when you have fully embraced yourself, when you have found strength in your own company, you will never again be afraid to walk alone, because walking alone does not mean being lonely, it means being powerful beyond measure. Freedom is one of the rarest treasures a person can hold, and among its many forms, freedom from the need for validation stands as one of the most powerful. It is a liberation that goes beyond physical independence. It is a release of the mind, the spirit, and the soul from chains that most people never even realize they wear. To live without being governed by the opinions, judgments, and expectations of others is to truly live. It is to rise above the constant hunger for approval that drives so many into fear, conformity, and compromise. When someone no longer depends on validation, they step into a strength that cannot be shaken, a confidence that cannot be broken, and a peace that cannot be stolen. Validation is addictive, From childhood, the desire to be praised, accepted, and admired is planted deep within. A child receives applause for good behavior, rewards for achievement, and comfort for pleasing others. As that child grows, the applause becomes a measure of worth, the praise becomes a drug, and the approval of others becomes the currency by which identity is bought and sold. Slowly, life becomes a stage, and every action is performed with the hope of winning approval. But this kind of existence is fragile, because it places your power in the hands of others. The moment they withhold their praise, your confidence crumbles. The moment they criticize, your worth feels diminished. The moment they walk away, your identity feels lost. Living for validation is living in a cage, and many never escape it. But freedom begins the moment you realize you no longer need anyone to tell you who you are. It begins when you stop begging for claps and start walking with certainty, even when the room is silent. It begins when you measure your worth not by how many people approve of you, but by how true you remain to yourself. The person who finds this freedom cannot be controlled, because control is often exerted through fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, or fear of criticism. But if you do not fear being misunderstood, left out, or disapproved of, then no one can use those things to keep you small. To be free from validation means living with an unshakable core. It means that when others doubt you, you continue anyway. When others mock you, you do not stop. When others try to define you, you smile, knowing that their words hold no power over the truth you carry inside. You do not rise and fall with the applause of the crowd, because you have learned that applause is fleeting, unstable, and often meaningless. What matters is not what others say, but what you know about yourself. That knowledge, earned through reflection, discipline, and courage, becomes a shield that no opinion can pierce. There is a quiet strength in walking into a room and not caring who notices you, who whispers about you, or who approves of you. That strength cannot be faked, because it comes from an internal certainty that does not need external confirmation. Most people enter spaces already preoccupied with how they will be perceived. They adjust their words, their appearance, even their values to be accepted. But when you no longer chase acceptance, you walk into every room with authenticity. You do not bend to fit in, you do not shrink to avoid judgment, and you do not change your colors to blend into someone else's world. You stand as yourself, and that is the most liberating way to exist. Freedom from validation is not arrogance, it is clarity. It is not defiance for the sake of rebellion, it is alignment with your truth. It is not carelessness about people's feelings, it is simply choosing not to let those feelings dictate your path. It is a shift from living for others to living as yourself. This does not mean ignoring wisdom, advice, or feedback, but it means no longer being enslaved by them. You can hear opinions without being defined by them. You can receive feedback without it shaking your identity. You can consider perspectives without being controlled by them. That is true strength. To listen with openness, but to stand firm in your truth. When you stop living for validation, you also stop fearing rejection. Rejection loses its sting when you understand that it does not diminish your worth, it only reveals misalignment. Not every person will understand you, accept you, or appreciate you, and that is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of difference. Once you embrace this, you no longer chase people who walk away, you no longer beg to be included, and you no longer diminish yourself to be accepted. You respect yourself enough to keep walking, because your worth is not up for negotiation. This fearlessness in the face of rejection gives you power that cannot be taken away. It is also in this freedom that true creativity and innovation flourish. When you are trapped by the need for validation, you censor yourself. You create only what you believe others will like. You act only in ways that will win approval. You live safely within the box others design for you. But when you no longer crave validation, you are free to explore, to experiment, to break molds and cross boundaries. You no longer fear failure, because failure is only humiliating to those who live for applause. To those who live for truth, failure is simply growth, and growth is power. Every step outside the crowd's approval becomes a step closer to originality. Freedom from validation also transforms relationships. Many people enter relationships out of need. The need to be affirmed, to be accepted, to be told they are enough. But when you no longer depend on others for validation, you no longer cling out of fear. You choose people, not because they fill a void, but because they complement your fullness. Your love becomes purer, because it is not rooted in desperation. Your friendships become healthier, because they are not chains but choices. You are no longer bound to those who treat you poorly, because you do not need them to tell you that you are valuable. You already know it. And when you already know your worth, you only allow connections that honor it. There is an undeniable peace in not needing validation. Peace because you do not live in constant anxiety about what others think. Peace because you are not controlled by gossip, opinions, or criticism. Peace because your life is no longer dictated by external voices, but guided by internal conviction. This peace radiates as confidence, not the loud, insecure kind that constantly demands attention, but the quiet, steady kind that simply exists. The kind of confidence that others can sense without you saying a word. The kind that makes you unshakable even in the face of storms. Society thrives on conformity, and the hunger for validation is one of its strongest tools for control. People fear standing out because they fear criticism. They compromise their truth because they crave belonging. They trade authenticity for approval, and in doing so, lose themselves. But when someone refuses to be ruled by validation, they break free from this system. They become uncontrollable because nothing, no ridicule, no exclusion, no disapproval, can cage them. They live by their own compass, and that independence is revolutionary. The path to this freedom is not easy. It requires courage to face disapproval. It requires strength to stand firm when others mock or misunderstand. It requires resilience to continue when applause is absent. But each time you choose authenticity over approval, you grow stronger. Each time you refuse to compromise your truth for validation, you build unshakable confidence. Each time you walk forward without needing anyone's permission, you step deeper into freedom. Over time, this becomes your natural state. You no longer even think about seeking validation, because your foundation is solid enough without it. There is a certain beauty in no longer caring for validation. You can live boldly, love deeply, and act fearlessly. You can speak your truth without hesitation, pursue your dreams without apology, and walk your path without fear. You can face criticism without it breaking you, because you know who you are. You can face loneliness without it consuming you, because your worth is not tied to numbers. You can face failure without it defining you, because validation is no longer your goal. Your goal is truth, growth, and alignment. That is the essence of freedom. When you stop living for validation, you also inspire others. Most people live in chains, unaware that the key is in their own hands. When they see someone walking freely, unapologetically, without needing anyone's approval, they begin to realize that they too can escape. Your courage becomes a light, and your authenticity becomes a permission slip for others to be authentic too. In this way, freedom from validation is not only personal power, it is collective impact. It changes not just you, but the world around you. The secret is simple yet profound. You were always enough. You did not need applause to prove it. You did not need acceptance to make it true. You did not need validation to hold value. The world may have conditioned you to believe otherwise, but the truth remains unchanged. You were enough the moment you were born, and you remain enough today. The journey is simply about realizing it, embracing it, and living it. And once you do, you will never again bow to the fleeting validation of others. You will walk free, strong, and unshakable, living not for approval but for truth. Connections are a natural part of life, but not all connections carry meaning, not all relationships carry weight, and not all people deserve access to your energy. Many live in the illusion that the more people they surround themselves with, the stronger and more fulfilled they will be. Yet time and experience reveal the opposite. Crowded rooms often feel the loneliest, and the loudest circles often provide the least support. There is a difference between company and connection, between presence and value, between numbers and depth. When someone discovers that their worth is not dependent on how many stand around them, but rather on how carefully they choose those who enter their world, they unlock a secret that few ever understand. Selective connections hold value. The truth is that not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Energy is one of the most precious currencies a person possesses, and giving it away without discretion drains the soul. The habit of surrounding oneself with anyone and everyone, of tolerating toxic company just to avoid solitude, or of keeping shallow ties just to feel less alone, comes at a cost. That cost is clarity, peace, and growth. But when you realize that solitude is not a punishment, and that wholeness does not require crowds, you begin to choose differently. You begin to measure relationships not by how many people know your name, but by how many truly understand your spirit. You begin to filter who enters your circle not by how well they perform for the world, but by how authentically they stand beside you when the world turns its back. Selective connections are not about arrogance or superiority, they are about alignment. They are about recognizing that your energy is finite and your time is limited, and so you cannot afford to waste either on those who do not value them. You begin to ask, does this person bring peace or chaos into my life? Do they build me up or tear me down? Do they celebrate my growth or envy it? Do they walk with me in storms or disappear at the first sign of rain? These questions become filters, and through them you discover the true power of quality over quantity. In the beginning, choosing selectively may feel lonely. The circle becomes smaller, the rooms quieter, and the days less crowded. But slowly, you begin to realize that this emptiness is not loss, it is purification. The silence is not absence, it is space, and in that space you create room for people who truly deserve to be there. People whose presence feels like calm, not chaos. People who inspire rather than drain. People who do not compete with your light, but celebrate it. People who remind you that real connection has nothing to do with how many stand around you, and everything to do with how deeply they stand with you. This is why selective connections hold such immense value. They protect your energy, preserve your peace, and amplify your growth. With the wrong people, you can spend years doubting yourself, shrinking yourself, and questioning your worth. With the right people, you can rise faster, dream bigger, and become stronger. The difference between the two is not numbers. It is intention. Being selective is not about cutting yourself off from the world. It is about opening yourself to the right parts of it. Selective connections also require courage because they demand boundaries. They require you to say no when you are expected to say yes. They require you to walk away when it would be easier to stay. They require you to accept being misunderstood, judged, or criticized for not playing by the rules of popularity. But boundaries are a declaration of self-respect. They signal to the world that your energy is not cheap, your presence is not free, and your worth is not negotiable. And those who cannot respect your boundaries do not deserve your company. One of the most powerful outcomes of selective connections is that they allow authenticity to thrive. When you surround yourself with people chosen carefully, you no longer feel the need to wear masks, perform roles, or dilute your truth. You can show up fully, without fear of judgment, because those around you value who you really are, not who you pretend to be. That authenticity is liberating, and it deepens every relationship it touches. It creates bonds that are not based on convenience, but on truth, not on performance, but on presence. And when you live in authenticity, you no longer fear losing people, because you know that anyone who leaves was not aligned with your truth anyway. Selective connections also elevate your vision. The company you keep has a direct impact on the path you walk. Surround yourself with the small-minded, and your dreams shrink. Surround yourself with the envious, and your progress slows. Surround yourself with the shallow, and your soul starves. But surround yourself with those who challenge you, inspire you, and push you higher, and you will rise in ways you never imagined. People are like mirrors. Some distort your reflection, some hide it, and some help you see it more clearly. Choosing selectively ensures that the mirrors around you reflect your best self rather than diminish it. The greatest test of selective connections often comes during success and during failure. In success, many will gather, but only a few will celebrate without jealousy. In failure, many will scatter, but only a few will remain without judgment. Those who remain steady in both seasons are the ones worth keeping, and often you will find that the number of such people is small, but their impact is immeasurable. They are rare, and that rarity is what gives them value. There is also a sacred kind of silence in selective connections. Unlike noisy crowds that demand your constant performance, real connections allow space for quiet. They do not need constant proof of loyalty or endless displays of effort. They simply exist steady and strong, like anchors, and in that silence you find rest, peace, and security. It is in these relationships that you can breathe fully, because you are not performing, you are simply being. To understand the value of selective connections is also to understand the danger of the wrong ones. Wrong company can destroy confidence, derail destiny, and delay growth. The wrong voices whisper lies until you begin to doubt your truth. The wrong influences normalize chaos until you forget what peace feels like. The wrong bonds tie you to cycles of pain until you lose sight of freedom. Many lives are not destroyed by enemies, but by false friends. not by outsiders, but by those given unguarded access. That is why discernment is crucial. Being selective is not cruelty, it is wisdom. It is choosing life over slow destruction, peace over chaos, and growth over stagnation. There will always be those who criticize selectivity. They will call it arrogance, selfishness, or coldness. But those who truly value themselves understand that not every person is meant to stay. Some are lessons, some are blessings, and some are both. Learning which is the essence of wisdom. And when you finally understand that you do not need to hold on to everyone, you free yourself from the burden of carrying relationships that were never meant for you. Selective connections hold value because they remind you that you deserve relationships that match your energy. You deserve to be surrounded by those who speak life into you, who see your worth even when the world doubts it, who stand with you not because of what you give them, but because of who you are. You deserve bonds that feel like safety, conversations that nourish your soul, and presence that feels like home. And the moment you believe this, you stop settling for anything less. This truth is liberating. You no longer chase after numbers, followers, or crowds. You no longer measure yourself by how many people surround you. You no longer waste energy keeping connections that feel empty. Instead, you choose with intention. You protect your energy as a sacred resource. You honor your spirit by only opening doors to those who deserve to walk through them. And in doing so, you create a life where every relationship adds value instead of draining it. Ultimately, selective connections are about quality over quantity. They are about realizing that one genuine bond is worth more than 100 shallow ones. One person who stands with you in truth is worth more than 1,000 who stand with you in pretense. One soul who celebrates your light is worth more than countless who are threatened by it. And when you live by this truth, you discover a richness in relationships that no crowded room could ever provide. The real power lies in choice. The choice to no longer settle, to no longer tolerate, to no longer give away access freely. The choice to protect your energy, to honor your worth, and to only invest in what truly matters. This is where the secret of value lies. Not in how many people surround you, but in how carefully you choose those who do. Not in the noise of constant company, but in the peace of authentic connection. Not in quantity, but in quality. And once you embrace this, every bond in your life becomes a treasure. Every connection becomes a blessing, and every relationship becomes a reflection of your strength, your clarity, and your truth.